In today's episode, we explore the biomarkers of Kapha dosha. Kapha imbalances may present as weight gain, sluggish metabolism, fluid retention, or feelings of heaviness and fatigue. But in medical language, these are often connected with certain specific biomarkers. In today's episode, we will look at the clinical side of imbalanced Kapha, like how excess Kapha energy shows up in test results and how early detection can help us take preventive action. If you have been trying to understand your health in both holistic and scientific terms, this episode will help you bridge that gap. Hope you enjoy this episode. In today's episode, let's understand about the biomarkers to understand imbalanced Kapha. Now, before we understand the biomarkers, let's just run through the concept of what Kapha is. If you look at the etymology of the word Kapha, it comes from slish alingane. Slish alingane means that which keeps things together. Like your bones, your muscles, your ligaments, your skin, fascia, all of these things are intact, keeping the whole body structure together. Or if you take an automobile, you have the nuts and bolts and things that holds the parts together. Now, holding these parts together, that is what a Kapha does. That is what slish alingane means. And if you look at the qualities of Kapha, it is also coming out of the elements that are dominant in Kapha. The 5 elements that we have, Pancha Mahabhutas, we have earth, water, fire, space, air. Among these, earth and water, these are the dominant elements of Kapha. Now, if you look at a huge mountain, that's a Kapha. If you look at a huge water body, that's a Kapha. Same way in our body, we have the physical weight. When you step on a weighing scale and you see a number because, it's because of the gravitational pull. Anything that which is heavy in nature that can be pulled down with gravity, that is an example of Kapha. So anything in your body that has a physical weight, that is what a Kapha is. Now, if you look at the qualities of Kapha, it is very cold in nature. It is very static in nature, dense, and also it's very oily. Like the word sneha. Sneha means, usually we translate the word sneha to be love. But actually the word sneha also means to keep things together, just like slish alingane. And that's what, when a loving person is there, they unite things together. They keep things together. And when somebody is not loving, they can create hatred and disperse things. So that's why the word sneha actually means to keep things together. And that is one of the dominant qualities of what a Kapha is. Now, let's take it in a physical word. Usually when you read the imbalances of Kapha, you will see that heavy in weight, they are very lethargic, or tendencies of depression and whitish coating in the tongue. That's what you read about. But let's understand, we have to go in a very objective identification through a biomarkers. Because ancient days, we didn't have these biomarkers to do a blood test to understand. If you look at the blood test to see how your Kapha is high, your lipid profile, if it is very high. Now, when we say lipid profile, you have good cholesterol, total cholesterol, you have the triglycerides, you have the HDL and LDL. Now here, your total cholesterol, LDL and triglycerides, when these 3 things are very high, that means your Kapha is high. And also your HDL, which is the good cholesterol, that can be lower than the normal range. That means again, your good Kapha is low. Or your good Kapha is low and the bad Kapha has increased. Now let's understand, good Kapha is what we call as ojas, the vitality in the body. And the bad Kapha is what we call as ama, or the mucus that is creating stickiness inside the body and that is blocking the natural flow of the body. So the first biomarker that you can identify about high Kapha is your cholesterol levels or lipid profile. Now, other thing is to identify the insulin levels, the fasting insulin, or your HbA1c levels. When this goes above certain parameters, that means metabolic deficiencies are happening, you tend to put on weight, and there could be metabolic problems because of that. So that's why one is lipid profile and one is the HbA1c and the fasting insulin measures. So these 3 can, to a great extent, to understand how imbalanced your Kapha is. Another one, when people have allergies like asthma or even hay fever, or sometimes they have urticaria or running nose. In your biomarkers, it can look at it as your eosinophils are high. It comes under the term called eosinophilia, or immunoglobulin E or G. Now, when these things are out of the correct, proper measures, the tendency of that person's immunity is weak and they can get triggered very easily with small allergic reactions. So this is again when the Kapha is imbalanced. So that's why immunity and Kapha are highly correlated. That is why when ama is high, your immunity is low. When good kapha is good, that means your ability of the body to be resilient whenever there is a trigger happens, that is strong. Now the word for immunity in Ayurveda is vyadi kshamatva. It means vyadi means a disease and kshamatva means ability to forgive and move on. So when your good kapha is high, the body's resilience is so good, even if something disturbs you, the body can recover and move on very quickly. And that is what a good kapha with good ojas does. Now, this is some of the ways to identify how your kapha can be imbalanced in your blood markers. How will this impact our certain diseases? What are the diseases where the kapha is very high? Definitely the first thing is if you are overweight. When we say overweight, sometimes I've seen people who are quite muscular in nature and they could have a high BMI. Body mass index can be slightly overweight if their musculature is quite high. So I wouldn't recommend BMI as the most accurate way to assess the bad kapha is high. Rather than that, if you can look at the waist hip ratio. If your belly fat is very high and your waist hip ratio is, you see a significant difference in that. That is a way to look at that your kapha is very high. So usually when belly fat is high, this also leads to tiredness, lethargy, sluggishness. They have poor appetite. They have this saying tired of being tired. And on top of that, they feel very tendencies of depressiveness or inertia, that inability to start something and get going. That is also something that when high kapha can happen. And allergic reactions which leads to excess mucus like asthma or bronchitis, because all these are problems of mucus being lodged in different parts and you are unable to breathe freely. And then you can sleep a lot. They sleep a lot but still wake up tired. This is again a kapha problem. And then there is a whitish coating in the tongue. These are problems of high kapha. And if you look at it from physical external parameters that you can look, high dandruff, seborrheic dermatitis, urticaria, to some extent, these are all contributed by high kapha. So if you see, these are some of the conditions that you can relate to. Some of the lifestyle changes that you need to look at it. Of course, please do consult a qualified physician to get the right approach. But in general, for your own awareness, you have to prioritize on your nutrition. Heavy carb, heavy processed food, oily processed food, this has to really come down, minimized or eliminated. And then better walking, movement, exercise or strength training or yoga, these things are very important. Or even going to sauna. This is very good because sauna means you sweat and sweating is a way to liquefy the excess kapha in your body. That is why sweating is considered one of the best therapies to liquefy your excess kapha in the body. And that's why when people exercise and if they sweat, it's fantastic. Or brisk walking and sweating, that's also a great way to bring down the excess kapha in your system. And then surrendering to your circadian rhythm. Surrendering to circadian rhythm applies for all the excess doshas, be it vata, pitta or kapha, because this impacts every part of your body. That's one thing that is mentioned clearly. And the other one, there are some panchakarma therapies like nasyam or vamana, depending on how severe the condition. But nasyam is a much more easier, which is to cleanse the nasopharyngeal duct with some oil or some salt water. And this really helps to cleanse the nasopharyngeal duct so that your breathing becomes normal. And you see, one thing I forgot to mention about high kapha is sometimes later on, this can lead to problems like sleep apnea and snoring. And this also impacts the heart health. So in overall, just by changing lifestyle, it's very easy to bring down the excess kapha. Improve your movement, focus on your nutrition, and track your biomarkers every few weeks or months. And just get a proper checkup with an Ayurvedic doctor. And if possible, do a panchakarma. This is best way to balance your kapha.